Tea of Courage. Welcome to my little impromptu Writer Wednesday, because I have had something stuck on my head. Really, the last 2 days. I have been thinking about something that I saw over on Twitter, X, that an agent had tweeted. And this is an agent that I submitted to. I have very neutral feelings toward this agent, but it's just, she posted something that bothers me. And I'm paraphrasing when I say this, but she tweeted basically something along the lines of how it was really obvious when authors self-edited their manuscripts, basically asking people to get them edited beforehand. And it really feels like gatekeeping to me, and it feels like they were basically saying, unless you can afford a professional editor, don't bother submitting to an agent, specifically this agent. And that bothers me. It irks me because, number one, it's gatekeeping. Because unless you have $2,000-$3,000 to go throw at an editor, you aren't allowed to be in this club of people who are submitting their manuscripts. And I don't like that because, number one, I don't have that much money to go throw at an editor on any given day. And there are a lot of authors, a lot of aspiring authors, who don't have that extra money, especially right now. And it's just, I don't like the way it was phrased. I think that is what really irritated me most. And I have been thinking about this since I saw this tweet, because it's just, this specific agent, excuse me, I burped, also had on her query form, you had to identify whether or not it was edited, and if it was, how. Now, my manuscript that I submitted to her was self-edited. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without being, arrogant about it. But I consider myself more aware of when a manuscript is ready for someone else to look at it. And so I feel pretty confident about the manuscript that I sent, or I would not have sent it. And I get what she means when she says don't send it unless it's been edited. I don't think she means literally you have to go pay an editor $3,500. That's the words that I tried to come out of my mouth, to look at this first. I think what she meant was that you need to get other eyes on it before you submit it to an agent, which, yes, I agree with that sentiment, but I just don't like the get it professionally edited before you submit part that she said, because it's gatekeeping. I don't like it. And that's really part of why I have stuck with indie publishing, because that gatekeeping element isn't there. There's not that one person saying, no, it's not good enough, you can't be published right now. But what this agent meant, I'm fairly certain, I am choosing to believe this is what she meant, was that before you submit to an agent, before you are putting your manuscript out there, saying, yes, this is ready to go, you need to study the craft of writing. Get beta readers, critique partners, someone to look at this manuscript who knows somewhat of how a book should go, so that they can be like, maybe you should not submit right now, or hey, this is pretty good. Something like that. Because while, yes, writing a book, writing in general, is art, if you are submitting to an agent, that means, that implies that you want that market of traditional publishing. You want that, what's the word I want? Commercial. You want the commercial career. You want the commercial success. And in order to have those two things, to be a commercially successful author with commercial success money coming in, you have to write a commercial book. The book has to be marketable. It has to be to the market. It has to be able to compete with all the other books that are currently out there. And in order to do that, you need to work on your craft. You need to know how to write a book. And that is something that you can learn on your own. You don't have to go get a master's degree in creative writing. And as someone with a master's in creative writing, it doesn't help you write. I wanted to teach. That's my main prerogative of getting the MFA. You don't have to go get one to learn how to write. You need to write in order to write. You need to learn from the mistakes. You need to keep writing and keep writing and keep writing and get other eyes on your manuscript. Go find author friends who are also kind of in your same boat. Go get beta readers. If you can find an editor that's like just starting out or something, you don't have to go pay $3,500 to have a professional editor looking at your book. It's not, now if your goal was like to self-publish, yeah, you probably should have someone in the editor field look at it before you hit publish and throw it out there into the ether. But again, it's just how this literary agent was just so almost arrogant about it, just how it was phrased and how it came across being like, if you want to submit, you need to go get professionally edited. And it's just and I get it from like the agent standpoint. They are looking for books that are as close to done and finished as possible. They don't want to have to go through revisions and revisions on like one book when they can just go like, hey, this one is basically done. You know what I mean? Because it makes their life easier. Because I know there's this idea out there in the writer sphere where if you get an agent, they're just going to magically make your book 10 times better, and that's not true. That's not how it works. Yeah, they might do a pass to like get like little things to make a good book even better, but they're not going to take a mediocre book and make it into a great book. That's not how it works. That's on you as the author to learn how to write and how to write a good story, how to write beginnings and how to form chapters and how to formulate scenes and build tension and have all of the stuff that you're building up pay off in the end. And even if you get an editor, even if you went out and you paid $3,500 for like a big time editor, they're not going to be able to teach you how to write. That is not an editor's job. They can't take your not well written book and like magically give you some advice that makes it all make sense and you can just go write this instant bestseller. That's not how it works. That's not what an agent does. That's not what an editor does. That is what you as the author have to do. It is our job as the author to go forth and learn the craft of writing. And it's like any other art form that you do. Like painting or drawing or a musical instrument. You're not gonna start playing the piano on Tuesday and then hold a concert a month later. You need to learn how to play the piano first, and that takes time. You can definitely tell if someone has been playing the piano very long. There's going to be a very, very, very obvious difference between someone who's been playing the piano for like 6 months versus someone who's been someone who's been playing the piano for 20 years. You're going to be able to hear the difference. And it's kind of the same with a book. Like if you pick up a manuscript by an author this is their very first book that they've ever written, there's going to be a difference between that and like the book of someone who has been writing professionally for 10, 20 years. And it's not saying that the writer who just started can never be a successful writer. It's just saying that you have to work on this craft and get better at it. And you get better at it by doing, by learning, by reading books on the craft, by studying the craft itself. And like the books that have done really well, read those books. Read as many books as you possibly can. So these have all been my thoughts in the past like 2 days. There have been times where like work will slow down and I'll think about it again and I will spiral. Because it's irritating to me when literary agents are very like, you have to do, this and this and this if you want to be successful. And it's that gatekeeping again. Like, yes, getting your book professionally edited would be a plus for most authors, but it's not necessary. And it shouldn't be necessary. Like, there should not be this stigma for authors who self-edit. I almost said self-publish. Self-edit their work. Because that's not indicative of their skill. And it shouldn't be. Like, there should not be that assumption like, oh, you self-edited your manuscript? Oh, it must suck. I really feel like that's a stigma that is really hard to get over. And like, as an indie author, there is a lot of like that kind of stigma. There's a lot of stigmas when it comes to indie authors, and like people assuming that, oh, if you are indie published, then that means you just couldn't get into traditional publishing, or oh, that means your book, hasn't sold very well, or oh, that must mean it's poorly written because you're an indie author. And that's not true anymore. It might have been true once upon a time when indie publishing first started, but it's not true anymore. There are so many successful indie authors who know what they're doing, who know how to write a book. Yes, there are plenty of indie authors who don't. I am aware they exist. They are aware they exist. We're all aware that they exist, okay? Because we've all got to start somewhere. My first book wasn't very good. I was once one of those authors. I would really like to think that I'm no longer one of those authors. That I have a much better sense of, how to build a story, how to market a story, where to place my stories within the market. I'm a lot more fired up about this subject than I was intending to be, than I usually am when I do these little things. I think I hit all the points that I had. Agent, aggravating tweet, professional editing, stigmas against indie authors, self-editing, learning the craft, commercial book, commercial success. I think I hit all the points. So I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you for joining me on this little rather short Writer Wednesday, Indie Tuesday. Go read an indie book. Go support an indie author. Make their day a little bit better. And leave a review. That always helps them out. It'll help us out. With all things, I think, after having thought about this a little bit more, it also comes down to taking all of the writing advice that you find out there from everyone who is, claiming to be part of this industry. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't take one person's advice and then absolutely change everything about your view about writing or publishing. Because everyone's got their own ideas, everyone's got their own thoughts, everyone has their own way that they think things should be, the way that authors should approach their works, the way that editors should approach their work, and it's not always the same. So in conclusion, I don't think you have to have a professional editor look at your book in order to submit to an agent, but I do think you need to work on your craft. I think that is one of the most important things a writer can do, is to improve their craft, to study how books are made, how character arcs develop, line editing, how words work, and how not to do words, if that makes sense. Because one thing, as an author, you should be reading consistently and voraciously. You should be looking at books and seeing how they are written, how they do the things that they do, how the author unfolds the story, how the characters build relationships with each other, how their backstories are intertwined with the rest of the plot, how the plot unfolds, how the tension builds, what words the author is using, what they are saying versus what they aren't saying. That goes back to some of my favorite writing advice, which is really hard to explain, which is don't state what you can imply. And I probably can't do a whole video on that because I understand what it means, but it's very hard to explain to other people what it means because I didn't get it for a long time. But again, I am just one mediocre indie author out in the vast ocean of publishing people, of writers, of authors, of agents and editors and all of those people. So don't let one person's tweet send you down a spiraling rabbit hole of despair. I wouldn't call the rabbit hole that I went down despair. It was more of I couldn't stop thinking about it and why I didn't like it. That's okay. I don't have to pursue traditional publishing because there's a lot to traditional publishing that I have grown to dislike, and it's not bureaucracy. That's not what I want. But there's just too many loopholes that you have to jump through, and you can't just jump through just on like talent. It's 95% of the time it's luck and who you know, and it's annoying. And it's being in the right agent's inbox at the right time, and then somehow also being, after that, after you get the agent, then you have to go on submission. Then it's the magic of finding right editor at the right time, and it's all just so, like, I could go through all of that nonsense, or I could just do it myself and then have my stuff out there for readers to read and not have to jump through 15 hoops, not have to wait 5 years for, well, 5, that's a long time. It's probably not that long. It's more like 1 or 2. Not wait an extensive amount of time for my book to be in the hands of readers. And those are my thoughts before and after dinner, so take that as you will. So thanks for tuning in to this little writer tidbit, this little indie author snippet. Stay tuned for more. They're not always this short, they're not always this intelligent, if you consider this one intelligent at all.